Welcome to episode 2 of our season 2 EnneaSisters podcast. I'm Jenny, Enneagram 1.
And I'm Kelly, Enneagram 6.
And today we are talking about Twilight characters, which we love. We love Twilight. So again, another book series, another great movie series. If you haven't seen them or read them, we recommend them.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about 3 characters, the love triangle, of course, Bella, Jacob, and Edward. And you might want to guess what numbers they are, but we will tell you in this podcast. Bella, we think, is a type 9.
Yes. And Jacob, we think, is a type 8.
And Edward is a type 6, which is super awesome because they are all in different stances.
Yeah.
Which makes the book series and the movie, the film, very fun to watch.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and start with Bella.
Yeah, so Bella, being a type 9, we know as the peacemakers. So she is in the withdrawn stance. We see her doing repressed.
Yep.
We see her as anchored to the past.
And so a lot about the withdrawn stance is, like Kelly's saying, they think past, they withdraw, hence the word withdraw. So they're kind of going inward oftentimes. And we see this in the film and the book when Bella is thinking about situations with her mom. The reason why she decided to move away had a lot to do with reflecting on the past, reflecting on years and years and years of her mom having relationships, traveling, doing this thing, and understanding that she needed to sacrifice by reflecting on the past to make this decision about the present, basically. So we know she's in the withdrawn stance for lots of reasons. I mean, we see her withdraw, even with Edward and Jacob.
Right.
During the love triangle. We see her withdraw into herself when Edward goes away.
Yes.
We see her withdraw into herself even during the time when she's with Jacob and she doesn't really want to come clean with the fact that she doesn't love him the way he wants her to.
Yeah, and even just in regular life, day to day, we see her alone a lot, withdrawing to her room, reading. She doesn't really want to be out and be social. She'd rather hang out in the library.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and if you remember, there was, I believe in season 1, her dad encouraging her to get out with friends, or maybe it was 2. And she eventually was like, okay, I'm going to go meet so-and-so. We're going to look for dresses or go into town. And that was a way for her to come out of withdrawn, even though she had ulterior motives.
Yeah.
But we definitely see that withdrawing into herself, alone time. A lot of that is that stance.
Yes.
And then we're going to talk about the stance and the triad and then the actual Enneagram type, because that's how we teach going into self-care. So that's how we teach finding your number. That's how we teach layering, understanding of self. So the next layering is triad, which we know that being a 9, she's in the body triad.
Yes, she's the center number in the body triad, which is interesting, which makes her doing repressed.
Which we haven't talked about this on the podcast before, but Kelly and I were just talking about the 3-6-9. So the 3-6-9 is connected, right? It's the center of the Enneagram, and they connect to each other, whether they're going to stress or strength. And each one of them is repressed in the area of their stance. So with 9, they're doing repressed, even though they're in doing body type, which is so interesting to me.
Yeah, so we see Bella being very unaware of her body, unaware of her surroundings. She's very clumsy.
Yes.
Like literally falls over all the time.
And you can remember reading that or seeing that, falling over, tripping, people having to carry her. Like she's just not aware of what's going on in the body.
Right. She gets in that car accident, has to be saved.
Yep.
Also, the body triad is known as the anger triad. And we see this differently in Bella. She kind of has a passive-aggressive way. She's very unaware of her anger. And so we see it kind of coming out sideways.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we do see her go into anger, and that could be going into low 3 or high 3, however you want to say it, being able to utilize the 3 for more strength. But she's typically going to be seen passive aggressively, like she's going to kind of walk around her true feelings about a situation.
Yeah.
Without becoming so dominant in that aggressive stance.
Yes, because 9s naturally want to merge or kind of agree with whoever they're with.
Mm-hmm.
They don't generally state their own opinions openly.
Right.
They want to just go along with to get along and keep the peace.
Mm-hmm. And we see that often with Bella, with pretty much any of her relationships. I mean, the prom dress with her best friend, she wants everybody to go prom dress shopping, and Bella's not really into it, sitting there, and the girls are like, try on a dress, do this, and she's like in her own world and not really saying that she doesn't want to be there. She's going with them in that situation, more so to merge.
Yeah.
Rather than actually going with, because she doesn't really like prom dress shopping, but she's merging with them because that's what 9s do.
Yeah, and she won't say, I don't want to go prom dress shopping.
Right, because that would create conflict that she does not want to be involved with.
Which 9s fear the most.
Yes.
Conflict.
Yes, so then that takes us to the actual type 9. So going into it is the avoidance of conflict.
Yes, exactly. They are highly motivated by keeping the peace and avoiding conflict.
Which is part of the problem with Bella, because, it's the reason why she's in the love triangle.
Right.
Because she, from the pits of her heart, and we see this openly said eventually, does not love Jacob the way Jacob loves her.
Right.
But will she tell him that? No. Because she is either A, afraid of conflict, or B, acting out her passive aggressiveness, or even C, fearing the loss of him, going into that 6, or all 3.
Right. Yeah, for sure. We also see her being very self-sacrificing in many ways, and that is sometimes good, sometimes not so good. When she's letting other people walk over her, she's letting other people take advantage of her, just trying to keep the peace.
Yeah. We mentioned in our dialogue prior that when she was pregnant, again, a lot of reveals. If you've never seen it, sorry. We're going to tell you the things, but I still think you should watch it and read it. Read it first. When she's pregnant in the last book and the 4th movie, she is protecting something else again. She's still self-sacrificing. Like, we want to, from the surface level, it's like, oh no, she's finally doing something for herself, but she's not. She's actually doing everything for the baby.
Right.
She's protecting the baby. And that's what we see in 9s is similar to 2s, and this is why they mistype a lot, is they're completely self-sacrificing. The motivation is different, but they're very giving of everything that they have to protect the ones they love.
Yeah.
And in that moment, Edward and Jacob are handling the situation quite differently. In being with her in that moment, quite interesting actually. But her in and of herself and in her 9-ness is protecting the baby.
Yeah, and she says a lot of the common 9 phrases like, it's fine, I'm fine, don't worry about it. She doesn't want attention on her. She wants it to be about other people, and she just wants things to go well, roll off the shoulder.
Right. Like you were saying before, she broke a rib and she said, oh, it's okay. That goes back to that body. So being so unaware, but at the same time, not wanting other people to break the peace or get upset because of her. Like, she's very, I'm here. I want everybody to be good and feel good. No arguing. Don't worry about me, even though it really is all about her.
Yeah, and previously she literally says, I'm the neutral continent. I'm Switzerland.
Yes, she does say that. Yes, right. In between Jacob
fighting.
and Edward. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And 9s are Switzerland, for the record.
Exactly.
Okay, moving on to Jacob, type 8. So he is in the aggressive stance. And we see him, talk about his future. He talks about kind of like, there's this lineage of these, indigenous people who become werewolves that he's aware of, but he focuses more on his own future and being different and apart from that, and understanding that it's just folklore. And he kind of rolls it off like it's silliness. And he's above that, which is such an aggressive stance of like, I'm above all of these other things. Like,
Yeah.
this is me, and I'm proud of who I am, and I'm strong and independent. We see him openly sharing, which 8s do, and aggressive stances do openly share how they feel. They're going to tell you what they think. They're going to tell you, if they're 3s, how they're going to achieve it. And they don't really care if they hurt your feelings or not, because they think it needs to be said.
Right.
And that's just the aggressive stance. And they're not trying to hurt you.
Yeah.
It's just who they are.
Yeah.
And so we see that a lot with Jacob, even before he becomes a werewolf. Very much like, this is kind of who I am, take it or leave it. Mm-hmm. He's not trying to please anybody or become anything but himself.
Yeah.
And then the triads.
Yeah, so he is also in the body triad.
Body triad.
However, we see his anger right under the surface. He's not afraid of it. He's going to show it. It's right there when he gets mad. He's very in his body.
Yep. Yeah, the movie scene we talked about, where he goes to the movie with that other boy, Mike, and Bella, and he's very angry, protective over Bella and the situation with Mike, and his anger comes out in just the smallest ways. Now, we understand he's becoming a werewolf, but that's all part of the movie. But he's still an 8, and in his 8-ness, he's very just aggressive. And if you remember, Bella's like, whoa, 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 what's going on? Like, it comes out so harsh and so intense that she even has to kind of get in the way of that.
Yeah, and intense really is the key word for type 8s. That's just how they do everything, intensely.
And it can be, we're going into like talking about self-care. So if you are an 8, or you see an 8, or you know an 8, just know that that intensity is part of who they are.
Yes.
Like, 8s can't be any more intense, just as well as 9s can't be peaceful and trying to, not be in conflict. It's just very much like they are who they are.
Right.
So going into now their 8-ness, like I said before, they're the challengers. So they're going to challenge everyone and everything.
Yeah.
Like, even if it doesn't need to be challenged, they tend to challenge.
It's just how they connect and relate with people.
Yes.
They want to just get into it.
Yes. And again, if you're not in the aggressive stance, it can be kind of obtrusive. Like, whoa, what's going on?
Exactly.
So understanding that 8 and meeting them where they are can be so helpful if you're in a relationship with a type 8. We didn't really talk about the self-care on type 9, so we'll go back. But with a type 8, it's really important to know that their statements, even though they may sound aggressive and harsh, like Kelly said, it's the way they're relating to you. It's the way that they're going to love you. And understanding that is half the battle.
For sure.
Because they're not wanting to come off hurting. You know, they're not trying to hurt you, like I said before, but it sometimes can feel that way. So understanding, like, this is who they are. They're going to be coming off strong pretty much 90% of the time.
Yeah.
They also do need to do the work, though, if they are in relationships with other people, which hopefully they are. Like in this situation, Jacob needed to have conversations with Bella.
Yeah, right. And also the challenging side is a way for them to protect their vulnerability, which is what they fear the most, is being vulnerable.
Right.
So having someone that's understanding, who's trustworthy, is really important for them.
Exactly. And she pushed into that. So unlike a typical 9, she really pressed into, I think, her 3 to get her to go and, kept calling him, and eventually just went over there.
Right.
And invaded his space and said, we are friends, I love you. I know those weren't her exact words, but she pressed into him. And I think that allowed him to trust her with this new sense of self.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that's what you need for the 8. Going back to 9, do you want to go cover that?
Yeah, 9s kind of need the opposite. They need someone to push them because they don't want to get off the couch or get out of their comfort zone. They kind of need a friend to say, hey, let's go out together. Let's connect and have some fun.
And that's, I think, why she was pulled to Jacob.
Yeah.
I think that's why a sense of her didn't want to let go of that. Even though she loved Edward more,
Yeah.
she felt something there because he did provide that.
Yeah, that friendship was a true friendship
Yeah.
on both sides.
And I mean, she clearly makes that known in book 2, film 2,
Right.
when we see her saying, you know, like, I need you. Like, I can't let you go. I need you. And she wants that friendship, even when he knows that she's not choosing him.
Right. I mean, she even wants him there at the wedding and all of that afterwards.
It's a very deep friendship. So
Yes.
again, good combo because they pull each other into where they need love the most, really.
Yeah.
That's
why their friendship works.
Which is why there was a Team Jacob, which I was not a part of, I will admit, because I'm a hopeless romantic, but there was a huge Team Jacob for all those realists out there.
Yes. It made more sense. It was logical.
It does make more sense, but it's not as romantic.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of romance, moving on to Edward, type 6.
Yes.
Your number.
I know. Yeah, so type 6s are the loyalists, which we see that name really strong in Edward because he's very loyal, not only to Bella, but to his family members.
And the stance is going with. So they are, I mean, we're in that stance, so we get it. They're present thinkers. They're not like the 9 in that they're merging and becoming almost mirrored the person they're with, but going with is being agreeable.
Yeah, supportive.
Supportive, agreeable. It's not that they won't say what they believe in, but they are going to try to see both sides, which 6s are really good at.
Yeah.
Negotiating, helping people see both sides of a situation.
Right.
But I think that is definitely the stance.
Yeah. And also in the stance is the earner idea. So 6s, 2s, and 1s, they all feel like there's a way to go about things in the world and that things need to be earned. So they're going to be trying hard to reach those.
Yes, for sure. And so he is in the thinking triad.
Yes.
And like we talked about before, he's thinking repressed.
Which is real interesting.
Which we see Edward doing that.
Yeah.
You know, he's thinking and thinking and thinking, and there's no action that pairs with the thinking.
Right. Which is why in the very beginning we see this back and forth. You know, he wants Bella, but then he's overthinking, oh, but I need to protect her. What if I kill her? But I need to be with her. So there's this back and forth of him doubting himself, overthinking.
Yeah.
And going back to what he wants.
Yeah. Right. And we get like, he's a vampire. Like he should probably be thinking about this.
He doesn't want to kill her.
As a 6, it is interesting because 6s overthink to the point that I don't think any of us quite comprehend.
Right,
the overthinking gets to the point of almost a debilitating state.
Yeah, the doom spiral.
So I don't think we quite see that with him, but he definitely is open to letting her go.
Yeah.
You know, I think we see him in this triad overthinking things to the point of, you know, I'm not as important as she is, and I'm not good for her.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of where he rests until she presses in.
Right.
You know, like, and he even tried it. He's like, well, maybe it is okay, you know? And then he's like, actually, it's not because something horrible happened. And so now I'm going back into my deep 6.
Yeah.
Or maybe even into my 3. And I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Which was a very dramatic thing to do.
Exactly.
But yeah, definitely in the thinking triad. And then pulling that 6 out. What do you have to say about 6?
Well, when he's real healthy and he's doing pretty good, we see him being polite and charming and funny once in a while, good-natured, remaining level-headed in a crisis, forgiving others. You know, he even forgives Jacob and tries to befriend him.
Yeah. I'm always impressed by his character with Jacob because could you imagine I mean, Jacob kissing Bella and like the things he said in the tent. And it's like, this guy's annoying. Like, I could kill him right now, but instead I'm going to like love him because Bella loves him. I mean, that is real love.
Yeah. Right.
That's why we like the pairing.
Yes.
But back to 6. So we had first typed him as a 1, which was a mistype. But the reason why is if we go back to his backstory, he really decides to do what he believes is the right thing, which is a 1, right? They're always wanting to do what's good. It doesn't matter what is getting in the way for themselves. They're wanting to do what's good for the better of the world. And that is what Carlisle started and instigated into Edward. So he's the one that began that, kind of going against the vampire culture, if you will.
Yes.
And creating another way. And so Edward followed suit, which is different than it being his idea.
Right. So he took on kind of that idea of this is the new mold and this is the way of life that I want to live. But yeah, we decided his motive was not the motives of the 1.
Right. Yes, his motives is loyalty first and foremost, and
security,
safety and security, which we find him protecting himself, but also protecting his people, which 6s are really good at.
Exactly.
Okay, so self-care for type 6.
Well,
your type. Well, they need to feel safe.
Exactly.
They need to be with people that they can trust in a different way than 8s do. You know, 8s need to be vulnerable, even though they don't want to be, and they're only going to be with people they trust. 6s are going to only open up to people they trust in all the ways. And so once they do, though, they're with you. Whereas I think 8s could take or leave you. Like, they're not going to trust you forever. Like, you have to keep proving, okay, I can still trust you. I can be vulnerable with you. Whereas 6s, they're loyal to you forever. So self-care to keep themselves in that space, I think, well, it's all the things we talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, spending some time alone is great. Being out in nature, you know, taking a walk, moving your body.
Yeah.
You know, being reflective, since 6s are present. It's important to look back and see what has gone well, you know, in the past. How can that help my decisions for the present?
Yeah, exactly. And then that helps you also go to future.
Right.
So reflecting on past, being present, and then moving towards future is great for the 6.
Yeah.
And then let's kind of go back. So going back to the 8s need things like journaling, things like yoga, things that will ground the energy and the anger that's inside of them. That anger is such a turmoil, active thing that they need to be pulled down into space where they can think.
Yeah, and get rid of some of that energy, as well as finding ways to get in touch with feelings, because their feelings repressed. So the journaling can help.
Yeah.
Talking to someone can help.
Both of those things. Even talking out loud. I mean, if you're angry, I've heard many coaches say, like, go to a room. It needs to be like, you know, maybe where neighbors won't hear you, but, you know, go somewhere, even in nature, climb a mountain, and let all that energy out. And then at the top of the mountain, scream and yell and like let it all out. Curse if you need to, and just release all of that built up tension through body into feelings.
Right.
You know, and then you can start accessing what's really behind that, because we know that anger is a secondary feeling.
Right.
There's something behind the anger, and that's true for all of us, but especially for those who have anger just right at the surface, you know. 8s, 9s, 1s. So get into journaling, try to access feelings, definitely through the people that you trust, like Jacob did with Bella.
Yeah.
And then Bella, as a 9, what would you say that 9s really need?
They also need a different kind of grounding, especially because they're so unaware of their body and doing repressed. I really recommend yoga, because that's going to connect mind to body and allow them to really understand, oh, okay, I can do. I can understand this body that I'm in.
Something active.
Yeah.
Anything active, even if it's taking a walk, something
Right.
active, because yeah, like we said, they're so unaware and they're so detached from their body that they need to be pulled back into body. And through that, they access feelings and thinking, and they can actually do something with it.
Yeah, as well as practicing expressing their own opinions. Because nines, they sometimes don't even know what they think and feel.
Right.
They're so used to just agreeing with people. So even like keeping a journal of, you know, this is how I feel today. This is my opinion.
Which is so important. I mean, this is important for all the numbers, but it's important since we're talking about nines. If you have a 9 in your life, or if you are a 9, when they do voice an opinion, let that ride.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that is not going to be something they do naturally. So really honor that. And in doing so, they will trust you and trust the experience. It will deepen your relationship. But yeah, definitely for 9s, learn to express what you're really thinking and feeling. But you got to get there first. And the best way to do that is by actively using your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's Bella, Jacob, and Edward for the Twilight series. And I love that we talked about 3 different stances.
Yes.
2 different triads and 3 different types. So if you ever have questions or want to make comments about any of the Enneagram types, but specifically these 3, feel free to post them on our website, send us a message. We would love to answer those. And thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.